Welcome to our first big surprise of the MCU.
Those were up, and they did.
We're smart, and my...
He told me enough!
No, I. Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for the 10th installment of the Infinity Saga, and going to be the 4th installment of Phase 2 of it. This is the review series I'm currently on for Phase 2. And it was going to be the next one actually to not be set on Earth, and first to not be set on Asgard on a different planet, and introduced us to the cosmic world of the MCU. And that film was going to be for none other than 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy, directed by James Gunn. Anyway, enough about that. What's the plot of this? Well, after stealing a mysterious orb in the far reaches of outer space, Peter Quill from Earth is now the main target of a manhunt led by the villain known as Ronan the Accuser. To help fight Ronan and his team and save the galaxy from his power, Quill creates a team of space heroes known as the Guardians of the Galaxy to save the galaxy. Yeah, so how was this made? Well, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige first mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy as a potential film at the 2010 San Diego Comic-Con International, saying that there were some obscure titles too, like Guardians of the Galaxy, and they've been revamped recently in a fun way in the comic book, and Feige related that sentiment in a September 2011 issue of Entertainment Weekly, saying that there was an opportunity to do a big space epic, which Thor sort of hints at in the cosmic side, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Feige added that should the film be made, it would feature an ensemble of characters similar to X-Men and the Avengers. And Feige then announced that the film was in active development at the 2012 San Diego Comic-Con International during the Marvel Studios panel, which an intended release of August 1st, 2014. He said the film's title or team would consist of the characters Star-Lord, Drax, Gamora, Groot, and Rocket. 2 pieces of concept art were also displayed, one of Rocket Raccoon and one featuring the entire team. And in August 2012, James Gunn entered talks to direct the film, beating out other contenders, including future MCU directors Penn Reed and a duo Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. The Avengers director Joss Whedon, who signed a deal to creatively consult on all the films leading up to the Avengers sequel, was enthusiastic about the selection of Gunn to direct, even saying that James Gunn is what makes him think it will work. He was just so off the wall, crazy but so smart, and the craftsman and builds from his heart. He loves the raccoon, needs the raccoon, and a very twisted take on it, but it all comes from a real love for the material. It would be hard for the human characters to keep up. Nicole Perlman, who was enrolled in Marvel's screenwriting program in 2009, was offered several of their lesser-known properties to base a screenplay on. Out of those, Perlman chose Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning's Guardians of the Galaxy due to her interest in space and science fiction, adding that he thinks Marvel was a little taken aback when he chose Guardians because they were the ones that would make a lot more sense if you were a romantic comedy writer or something like that. Perlman spent 2 years writing a draft, immersing herself in the Guardians universe, and was asked in late 2011 to create another draft, before Gunn was brought back in early 2012 to contribute to the script. Gunn eventually rewrote the script entirely because it did not work for him, and he would use the film The Dirty Dozen as a reference to convey his ideas in the film to Marvel. Gunn even later explained that Perlman's draft is very different from the script he used during filming, including a different story, character arcs, and no Walkman. He even stated that in Nicole's script everything's pretty different, it's not all the same stuff, but that's how the WGA works. And the 2012 screenplay also had Jason as an emperor and Peter Quill and Star's father, just like in the comic books. When Marvel asked Joss Whedon to revise the script ahead of Age of Ultron, Whedon particularly detested this reveal and suggested Marvel to not make Peter part of royalty. Whedon even suggested Gunn to make the story weirder after reading the early draft. In August 2012, Marvel Studios hired writer Chris McCoy to rewrite Perlman's script, but was not credited in the final film. And then Gunn revealed that character introductions were the hardest scenes to crack, with Thanos' introduction being the most difficult. He felt that having Thanos be in that scene was more helpful to the MCU than it was to Guardians of the Galaxy, and yet he still wanted Thanos in the film without belittling the actual antagonist of the film, which is Ronan. And to solve his dilemma, Gunn chose to have Ronan kill the other, Thanos' visualizer, saying that he thought that was interesting because we've had the other, who's obviously very powerful, even in comparison to Loki, and then we see Ronan wipe his ass with him, so which he liked. But even that was sort of difficult because it played as funnier when he first wrote it, and the humor didn't even work that much. So anyway, after the movie was shot, marketed, Guardians of the Galaxy would go on to premiere at the Dolby Theater in Hollywood on July 21st, 2014, and was actually released in the United States on August 1st, 2014, as the fourth film of Phase 2 of the MCU and of the Infinity Saga. And how was this? Well, much like The Winter Soldier, this was also a critical and commercial success, surprisingly. The most surprising one to become a critical and commercial hit. It grossed at the box office, it grossed $773 million worldwide, became the highest grossing superhero film of 2014, and the third highest grossing film of 2014. It was praised for its screenplay, direction, acting, humor, soundtrack, visual effects, and action sequences. It was nominated for 2 awards at the 87th Academy Awards, and received numerous other accolades. 2. A sequel, Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 2, would be released in 2017 as part of Phase 3, although technically, to be fair, I'm going to reveal something. Guardians of the Galaxy technically takes place during Phase 2. You'll find out more in that review, in April. And a third film we all know, Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 3, is going to be released on May 5th, 2023. That's in 2 months. Oof. Time flies. As for my reaction, well, I first saw the teaser for this before when I went to see The Winter Soldier just as it was about to start. And, I was not excited. No. You want to know why? Because the concept looks stupid. I mean, come on. A raccoon and a talking tree of superheroes? Give me a break. Like, just when you were finally repairing yourselves, you were really going to take this risk just as Winter Soldier repaired you guys. However, the next trailers slightly got better, and then the actual movie came out, and when I went to see this in IMAX 3D, when I was traveling all over Canada and visited West Edmonton Mall, was at the West Edmonton Mall Theater, I gotta say, this would have to be went on to become my 5th favorite MCU film. Like, I did not expect, nor even anybody else did for that matter, this to be a phenomenal and one of Marvel's best films, and it was a perfect way to introduce us to the cosmic world of the MCU, and it made the Guardians of the Galaxy one of the best superhero teams in Marvel. Back before this movie, they weren't very well known. 3D's sometimes usually not my choice of spending money, but this was totally worth it. This movie's just made for IMAX with 3D as a dessert. The acting is superb from the main characters, the soundtrack, the editing, the cinematography are even excellent. What's more is the movie immediately caught my attention with its opening scene. Like, the opening scene where Peter loses his mom to cancer in the hospital is very emotional and very heartbreaking way to start the movie. And it really made me focus on the connection of Quill, and then just after introduction, here comes the most amazing intro of Marvel, which is the most coolest intro in all of the MCU movies. And then it randomly moves on towards Peter Quill now grown up and dancing and singing, and that was like, that moment is so fun. Oh, fun as well. Especially with Red Bones Come and Get Your Love playing in the background when that happens. And the following scenarios would be epic, and I must say the scene and the person where they all met together is the best place for them to meet because they're all criminals at the start. It felt so cool that all 5 of them would work together on a similar cause despite them not having different principles and perspectives of their own. And from then on, everything was just interesting and fun. It never subsides, and all the characters were fun, emotional, interesting, and enjoyable to watch. And plot and story is so amazing. It's very cool to hook me up, and there was no boring part, all pure action, laugh awesomeness, and touching scenes. Rocket, Groot, and Drax were some of the most fun characters in the movie, especially Groot and Peter Quill winning the funniest acts that made the whole audience in that place laugh for like 50 seconds straight. Seconds straight throughout most of the movie. Like, and Guardians of the Galaxy even beats the one comic relief, overdramatic, rehashed action movie format by a long shot. One more movie with the punchy sidekick, only for there for the laughs as he accompanies the Vanilla Boy Scout main man, and then Hulk smash the disc. Like, it's either they're Lord Larry love interest Lucy in those films, and in many group of heroes, such as the Avengers, their movies sometimes fare no better, featuring literally thought-over stereotypical characters from older films that name or in spirit about to blast the baddies of the newest tech of the times. Eh. Thankfully, the Guardians have actual odd and not contrived odd personalities, and so does the movie. Like, Oldie's music infiltrates the film instead of overdramatic trumpet flourishes, but the theme takes place in space instead of downtown big American city like Star Trek, and graphics are very stellar, huh? Like, yeah, the Guardians film was like funnier than most intentional comedies had been released at the time. But it still did have a heart. Like the bad guys without friends that may pretend to be, but the Guardians show that they care for each other and for other people, even if they don't say it. Like, and even insanely likable characters too. Loyalty isn't a bit confusing at first, but it will be apparent after a while, unlike some films, where it's painfully clear who's aligned with who from the title sequence. And the duo Rocket and Groot are one really amazing tandem. Like, their lines were just epic, and it digs deep into your mind. And the movie's like the only movie to establish and rig those movies' lines inside my mind without forgetting them, and they've kept on rejecting inside my mind, and it's like you just won the lottery of magic numbers. And the CGI of these two characters is flawless, and it just fits the mood of the whole movie. And these were the two characters that made me not excited for the film. And surprisingly, they were one of the best parts of the film. Here, they weren't just some raccoon and tree, they felt like actual characters. And especially the heartbreaking way Adult Groot gets sent off, where he's pretty much shielding the whole team under this whole ball of branches, and Rocket begs him not to do it, saying he'll die. He does it, and asks why he's doing this, and Groot's reply is "we," because most of the movie Groot just says "I'm Groot." Here, he says the first non-I'm Groot line, "We are Groot," and pretty much. It's a very beautiful, heartbreaking moment. I really miss this side of the MCU, where they actually weren't afraid to show emotion here. But Guardians of the Galaxy is just nothing short of an amazing movie. If there's anything I can say is that it was easily the best team up movie of MCU at the time. Anyways, probably is slightly even better than Avengers. Not only did it have the impressive set piece and enough action to last you a lifetime, it has an emotional core and you actually get to care about each and every single character. Overall, this movie is filled with all the acquired thrills and spills, and its first-class action movie has a great mixture of comedic value and a deal of seriousness. When it comes to like the characters here, Peter Quill, our main one, or Star-Lord as he likes to call himself, long before Infinity War fans got overly mad about him, and sometimes are still getting mad about, and seem to still don't want to let go of what he did in Infinity War, even though technically Endgame brought everyone back. This was when people actually liked his character. Nowadays, almost everybody hates him. But anyways, Peter Quill here is a quick-witted man on Earth thrown to the far reaches of the galaxy, has stolen an artifact that everyone seems to want, and by accident he stumbles upon 4 other characters, which were Gamora the Assassin, Drax the Destroyer, Rocket the Ants Raccoon, and Groot the Humanoid Tree, and the 5 of them form an unlikely team. The characters are even well presented, their emotional core is strong, and backstory is engaging. In short, they're just interesting and easy to like. All of them have great moments that keep us wanting for more and more. Rocket in particular steals the show with his anger management problems and bright one-liners, and it's great to see a group of people, each with their own agenda, come together. This dynamic worked really well, and started to carry a lot of this weight and was very sympathetic. And the film doesn't take itself very seriously, which was refreshing to see after also great yet darker themes of Thor and Captain America 2. Guardians has a lot of laughs, witty dialogue, characters rub off on each other, and the audience writing is perfect. The film was even so entertaining, non-stop adventure, but also known when to balance on more dramatic themes. Syrian words are spectacular, their visual effects are top-notch, and here, and even readers of Guardians of the Galaxy would find it great to see some smaller motives thrown in that may not be necessarily caught by regular viewers, but which comic readers would probably be thankful for too. here, like, and even though this is one of the most comedic MCU films, it actually balances its comedy very well, unlike a lot of films that try this move, and actually knows when to be serious here. It's perfectly balanced as all things should be. And like the Avengers, like the Avengers characters did in their first team-up film, the Guardians characters here get off to a false start, but they soon realize they have to unite over a common cause, namely, the galaxy being obliterated by genocidal maniac Ronan, the Accuser. Like the old let's exterminate everyone for the mistakes of their fourth floors play, but unlike Avengers here, Guardians of the Galaxy uses offbeat originality, and frankly, it's the most unique and delightful film Marvel has created to date. It gets a hell of an achievement given the extensive movie library the company was building up, and when you consider the characters are in household names like the big three Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America, Marvel seems well aware of the fact that their final production is risky to say the least. Even the distinct decade in which it was taken, this cassette player mixtape of 70s and 80s tracks are laced throughout the film, and it creates a quirky yet grounded quality in the midst of all the dazzling interstellar warfare that takes place along the way. In addition to the soundtrack, jokes and comedy have never been more of a feature in Marvel film. Perhaps perhaps the crappy movie Iron Man 3 was the closest, where gigs are thrown at the unlikeliest scenarios to lessen the attention, I would imagine, but thankfully they did not do what Iron Man 3 did here. But to really differentiate yourself from Avengers Assemble, Star Wars, and Star Trek, which by comparison are left looking very somber after this, like if you were going to compare Pratt's Quill to anyone, the character is quite reminiscent of Chris Pine's Captain James Kirk, smart, womanizing, reckless leaders who eventually find their feet. The editing is even supreme here. It makes each bit of dialogue super sharp and tight, so when the infamous five are bickering or talking generally, the reparty all feels really clean and natural without being awkward or forced. And Thor could be stubborn, Iron Man could be arrogant, and Captain America is considered too stiff, but all the Guardians bring even more wildly different qualities to the table, and offer some diversity that doesn't even grate or bore, which would have been possible without such excellent casting. And now we get onto the actors' performances. First off, Chris Pratt or Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, is this big badass who's one of the best mixtapes I've ever heard, and one of the most badass characters in Marvel films. Like, this was probably the movie, before this movie and the Lego movie, Chris Pratt was not very well known to a lot of people, mostly just known as the Parks and Recreation guy. That was just it. This movie though, 2014 was the year that really launched him into the spotlight with his success in the Lego movie, and then just months later, his success in this movie. Here, it gives a very wonderful performance. This movie pretty much made him one of my favorite actors of all time, and then went on to find more success with Jurassic World the next year and stuff. And he's pretty much been a big household name ever since this movie. Then we also have Zoe Saldana playing a green woman named Gamora. And knowing Zoe Saldana, who got her career launched or fame launched with Avatar and the Star Trek reboots, she's also in nearly almost every role, and this one's no exception. Her fighting skills are awesome as always. Then the next actor has to be one of the most also badasses in this film. And this was a guy I had never heard of before this movie released. And this guy's name was Dave Bautista, aka Drax the Destroyer. He was just this badass, hilarious fighter in this one. This film also launched Dave Bautista into the spotlight here, and has also become a big household name actor ever since this movie. And then you have the other two characters, the tree and the raccoon, which the tree is Groot, voiced and sometimes played by Vin Diesel himself. And I think he was really good as Groot, even though he only just says "I am Groot" at least. And I think this was probably Vin Diesel's best role since the Iron Giant. I was probably never this emotionally invested in a Vin Diesel character since he voiced the Iron Giant, and even Groot's send-off even felt like the Iron Giant's sad send-off in that film. And then you have, last but not least, you have Bradley Cooper as the voice of Rocket Raccoon. Brad's voice performance was freaking awesome in this. He had witty one-liners after every action, a very cocky character, and he always has a witty remark to everything that just about goes on. And then you also have the bad guy, Ronan the Accuser, played by Lee Pace. Some people go on to say he's not really as good as they hope, but I thought he was kind of a decently menacing, awesome villain. The backstory of Ronan includes him having a bit of fed with Drax, originally because Drax thinks Ronan killed his family, and their feud was born. And Drax, while focusing on being in Guardians of the Galaxy, has a major score to settle with Ronan, but of course we find out that Ronan wasn't the main responsible one for his family's death. It turns out Ronan's master Thanos was actually the one that pretty much hired Ronan to kill them, and so like, Drax saying it's really Thanos they need to kill. It's a perfect tease for Infinity War, what's soon to come. And then there's another certain character named the Collector, who's played by Benicio del Toro. He has about 1 or 2 scenes, but he's quite good in this. Like, after his minor role in the end credits of Thor the Dark World, in GOTG you see more of him, why he's called the Collector. He has a ton of stuff in his collection, including Cosmonaut Doc, and then another item that was seen at the very end of the credits, Howard the Duck. Yes, guys, Howard the Duck gets a cameo in this film. This film here, voiced by Seth Green, and despite a cameo, Seth Green does a pretty good job as Howard the Duck. And you know what's more epic too? This was also the movie that finally fully introduced us to the big bad of the Infinity Saga, Thanos, and his first time being portrayed by Josh Brolin in just 1 or 2 scenes. And his introduction scene was perfect, like when he's threatening Ronan, "Fail to bring me the orb, and I will bathe the stowaways in your blood." If he does not get him the orb, and it was a perfect build-up to his whole plan in Infinity War here, like, this movie kind of feels like you can tell this movie was kind of meant to prepare us for Infinity War, what was soon to come in 4 years after this. And I also do love the performances of Michael Rooker and Sean Dunn as Yondu and Kraglin. Like, they're also a very hilarious duo in these first 2 films. They don't get too much development in this film. Like, I feel like the sequel does develop them a little better as characters, but that's going to be another review. Unfortunately, now we do get to the bad qualities. And yes, you all know I've lost respect for James Gunn, but I've mentioned that way too many times now, and I'm going to leave that out. So I'm not going to count that as a bad quality, because I think I've talked about that to death. So we're going to just leave that out of this review, please. So please don't say screw James Gunn in the chats, please. I want to leave it out of this review. For actual proper bad qualities, I feel like Ronan is, yeah, while he was decent, he was kind of an underused villain, at times just mainly for his plan, but Lee Pace still did phenomenal as him. Second bad quality, well, Drax the Destroyer was funny. He does start off a bit unlikable when you first meet him, but once you realize exactly why, because Ronan killed his family, you feel too attached to him as the movie progresses. Another bad quality, and also there's some, and then you have Gamora's sister Nebula, who thankfully went on to become one of the best characters of the MCU, but this movie, it's just kind of a sidekick of Ronan. That's just about it. Doesn't really get much development in this film, but thankfully Volume 2, Infinity War and Endgame developed her better. So at least there's that. And then there was another bad quality. This was a scene that didn't appear in the trailer, but it was, and it only appeared in the trailer, but I could count though. I did not like this trailer's had a scene where Gamora was seen looking back at the camera topless. And thankfully this scene was neither seen in the movie or in the deleted scenes. And thank goodness it was cut, because I don't think a scene like that belongs in an MCU film. And it does, I guess I can say it kind of somewhat foreshadowed James Gunn's old self. Other than those nitpicks though, Guardians of the Galaxy was a perfect way to introduce us to the cosmic world of the MCU and prepare the events of Infinity War, introduce us to the greatest MCU villain in a brief cameo. In the end, Guardians of the Galaxy is a perfect escape from the Earth part of Marvel and into outer space, and is also worth a watch for yourself or other Marvel films as well, and worth a buy. Anyway, that's it for my review of Guardians of the Galaxy. If you're wondering how I'm going to rank Guardians of the Galaxy, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you want to see what space looks like in the MCU, and to be introduced to what would be one of the funniest teams in Marvel, then I would highly recommend watching this movie, and then buying it and adding it to your collection for sure. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm going to give Guardians of the Galaxy a 9.5 out of 10. There we go. That wraps up my review for Guardians of the Galaxy. And that's only 2 more films left of Phase 2, so those reviews are going to be saved for the week of the 20th. Because this upcoming week, I'm probably just going to review some more original stuff I haven't reviewed yet. So yeah, be sure to stay tuned for those films. And until then, guys, that will be it for this review. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Don G. Corleone.